You know what would make that better? A cup of white cane coffee.
Wow, that really is great coffee.
White cane coffee, because every cup makes a difference.
It's not just about music lessons. It's about hard work, perseverance, dedication, self-expression, making memories. Let's make memories together.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Coffee and a Conversation presented by White Cane Coffee. As you can see, we're here at the White Cane Cafe with Warren County Sheriff candidate Scott Neiswonger. Scott, thanks so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you for having me.
Before we get too involved in our talk, I want to let everybody know the cafe is open through all this construction downtown. Stop in. We're in the plaza across from Tops. Get a fresh cup of White Cane Coffee. We both got ours this morning. Got some great baked goods as well, some fantastic cinnamon rolls and hand pies, and I have a standing order at home that I'm supposed to bring an apple pie home every week. So,
Absolutely.
But if you don't want to deal with the construction, White Cane is also available on DoorDash. You can place your order, get it delivered right to your door, or order your favorite roasted brew at home online at whitecanecoffee.com. And you were just telling me right before we went on air that you were giving orders as well to make sure you replenish the coffee supply.
Absolutely, yeah. We have White Cane Coffee every single day. Every single day that we wake up, we have a cup or two. So
Or
yeah,
seven.
we're running. Yeah, we're running a little bit low at the house. So I was giving direct orders to bring some home. So
And so again, thank you so much for joining us this week. And I know you had mentioned when we kind of set this date that you were maybe coming right off a shift to come down here. And,
yeah, unfortunately.
So we definitely appreciate it. Definitely get yourself some White Cane Coffee today.
That's why you can see I'm drinking a large.
Yeah. But so, let's kind of get right into it. How did you get, involved in law enforcement, and what drew you to that career choice?
Well, actually, I'm a third generation police officer in my family. My grandfather actually grew up in Altoona, Pennsylvania, and got stationed up to Warren. Obviously, built a family. Mom and dad met. My dad went through the police academy as well back in 1985, just after I was born. And then it's something that we have in a family. I've got 8 different police officers in my family, we'll say. So,
Okay.
So it was kind of a calling, I would say. Whenever I got up into 22, 23 years old, that was a career choice that I was looking into, and I was fortunate enough back in 2004 to get accepted to the police academy out Northeast. We graduated in 2004, July 2004, and I got my job at Untitled Township, and I've been there for almost 7 years, or 17 years.
Yeah. And a lot of that time has been spent working with canines.
Yes.
And I'm sure, people hear your name and they go, "Oh, dogs." Yes.
Yes.
So how did that get started for you, and what drew you to wanting to work with the canine units?
Well, actually, I'll take you back whenever I was in 6th grade. Danny Michaels, the DARE officer.
Yeah.
Whenever we were in Beatty, he ended up bringing it in a police canine.
Okay.
And that had such an impact on me. It was just amazing to see the dogs and how trained they were and how they work and how they were utilized in police work and stuff like that. So it really started the ball rolling in my head. And whenever I got into law enforcement, that was something that I wanted to do, to explore. Whenever I became an officer, there was no police canine at Conowingo Township. So it took a little bit of convincing, a little bit of getting statistics and different stuff and the need for the canines and stuff like that. So, but that was something that was kind of a true calling, but it definitely did start back with Danny Michaels whenever when he was our DARE officer.
Yeah. So, well, there you have it, kids. The DARE program works, and maybe not in always the ways you think it should, but
absolutely.
But kind of go through that process. I mean, obviously there's cost involved in getting a canine unit started, but it's not just the dogs that have to go through the training, right? Like you as a handler have to go through, I'm sure, some training as well.
Pretty extensive training, absolutely. Whenever we went down and actually picked out Canine Chopper, that was back at the end of 2014. He was starting to be trained down in Shallow Creek. He actually came from Holland. And actually was imported. Most of the police canines through Shallow Creek Kennels, they're all imported. So, he was kind of trained to the job, and then they bring us as handlers to kind of mess him up for a first week or two because we don't really know what we're doing.
Right.
And then we build as a team together. Yeah. So it definitely is an ongoing training, and it is definitely an ongoing cost of doing business. And we obviously have a need for the police canines in Conewago Township and in Warren County. So it is a fantastic program. So talking about the cost of the program, everything that we've done since 2015 when we started raising money has been done by donations and grants and everything from the community. So I can't thank the community enough for what they have done for the police canine program and everything. It has been we truly live in an amazing county.
Right. Well, and I heard you speaking with Bob Willman, one of the owners here at White Cane, and talking about how maybe there are people that maybe don't understand that just because a dog goes through that training process and gets certified, that's not the end of their training. You've got to continually keep them going. And
continuing education is huge with police officers. Training in general is huge with police officers, but also whenever you come down to a dog, it's if you don't train, they eventually lose that skill. So keeping these police canines and stuff, and even the service dogs, they go through training and stuff and have to be have an extended period of training every month. It keeps them on their skills, keeps them sharp. Obviously we're expecting them to do a job, and we want them to perform at the highest. So
and you mentioned the service dogs, and obviously the White King Foundation has been very big in the county, and was an integral part of getting Olive into the sheriff's office. But how beneficial can having both, like you talk about with maybe Chopper or Nick, and how those are more of the traditional canine police dogs that people think of, sniffing and things like that. But then also to have a service dog like Olive that's there, primarily with the school resource officers, to go into the schools and kind of build that relationship with the students.
Olive is a fantastic asset to the schools. I've spoke to the uppers at the school district. I've obviously spoke with the handlers and both school resource officers on how the program's going. What can be benefited, what changes can be done, if so, and just trying to get a feel for everything. I want to see how the program is, and I've heard nothing but great things. And they've got 5 stars all around, so which is great. But the kids are very receptive. That was the biggest thing that I heard from school officials and administration, that the kids were very receptive to it. And that's the big thing, is we always are trying as law enforcement officers to bridge that little gap between us children and the public, for sure. So it has been a fantastic program, and yes, absolutely. And that was one of Bob's questions to me is, what's going on with Olive, but yes, I assure everybody that, Canine Olive will stay exactly at the sheriff's department and doing that because it's doing fantastic things. And I even told him, I was like, if I could duplicate her, I would.
Well, and it's funny because, they'll even bring her up to the school board meeting. And it's interesting, especially now. I mean, obviously this has kind of been a tense time with the school discussion. But it's interesting to see how she reacts when things kind of get a little, maybe a little heated, or people start to get where, most of the time, if it's just the normal ebb and flow of a board meeting, right, and they're just going through their agenda, and can we have a motion and passes and stuff, she's out on the bench just chilling out. But when things do start to get a little, if people are getting emotional in their comments or whatever, I've seen her she picks her head up, she'll start taking steps to the door,
Absolutely.
and maybe want to come in the room. And I think that just goes to show, all that training and stuff, she's picking up on that immediately. And it's amazing to watch.
And dogs being just, they're fantastic at reading body language.
Yes.
And of course, I have Nick at home and I have him at work, and I actually spend more time with him than my girlfriend, unfortunately. But I spend a lot of time with him. So he knows when we're having bad days.
Right.
He knows when we're emotional. He knows when we're stressed. I mean, it's an amazing thing that these dogs can pick up on. So, but yes, it getting heated, getting emotional and stuff, that is something that she's trained to pick up.
Yeah.
So that's something that she's picking up.
And I say that because you see it there, and that's in a limited window.
Yeah.
So I can only imagine what it's like when she's walking through a school and reading that hey, maybe this kid's feeling a little off, or
Correct.
she can sense that, and again how those just kind of interactions with how often you're having a bad day and you see a little pup walking on the street and they get all excited and everything.
Yes.
Oh, you got to pet him, but it just lightens the mood and relieves some of that stress.
Yes, and that's why it's a huge asset to be in the schools. Any kind of emotional support, therapy dogs and stuff that are in the schools, anything that we can do for our kids to open them up, make them feel comfortable. That's something that's that little bridge. And all of it is that little bridge, and to put a smile on a kid's face,
branch,
or a branch, I would say. Sorry. But yeah, and to have the kids smiling and looking forward to meeting all of them.
Yeah.
And it is a fantastic program. Absolutely.
And so you mentioned you spent an awful lot of time with Nick, and
Yes.
So now would that by necessity change were you to become Warren County Sheriff? Would you have to hand Nick over to another handler?
No.
Okay. So kind of go through that. How would that work?
Okay. Before I decided to run for Warren County Sheriff, that was my question to the Conowongo Township supervisors and my immediate supervisors. If I've worked very hard, and I've seen what an asset Nick is in the police canines in this county. I wasn't going to do this if I was not going to be able to bring Nick with me. So we were able to legally, iron everything out with the solicitors and stuff like that. So, but Canine Nick will be coming with me to the Warren County Sheriff's Department. It will be able to be utilized not only on the drug task force, but in the community service events and different stuff like that. So, absolutely.
And so I guess that kind of leads into why was now the time for you to go after this and try to become Warren County Sheriff?
It has been a talk for some time. Brian Zabel is a fantastic man. He has been a good family friend for many, many years. My dad was one of the officers one of the troopers that actually trained him when he was down. So he's been a good family friend and everything. And whenever I got into law enforcement, I wanted to kind of step up and do something for the community. And being in that position is something that would make me able to do a little bit more for the community and everything like that. And then seeing, unfortunately, the tragic event of, what Chopper's passing in 2018 and seeing what the community really came together in all aspects, law enforcement and personal and private businesses and stuff like that. I've always felt the need to really give it my all and give back to the community. So with Brian saying that he was going to retire, which was kind of shocking to all of us, is we figured he'd be here for a couple more terms and stuff like that. And sitting down with Brian, he explained, it is his time, which is a good move for us is we can run now for sheriff, but I would never run against Brian. He's a great friend of mine. But now it's just my time and my calling to this, and I believe that I can do great at the position and stuff, and it just kind of give back to the community for sure.
Okay, so let's let's say we go through primaries on May 16th, by the way, let everybody know, get out and vote
May
if you
16th,
can.
absolutely.
Unfortunately, I'm one of those select few who can't.
Which is very unfortunate.
Yes, it is.
And I'm hoping in Pennsylvania they change that.
There's a push right now.
Yes,
but yeah,
absolutely.
I agree. I think, it's too important.
Yes.
To close out a segment of the voting block.
And going from Democrat to Republican and independent, everybody should have a voice in the primaries, and everyone should have a voice in the main election. That is their right to everybody.
And use that voice, please.
Yes.
We
Absolutely.
cannot stress this enough. This is one of the rights and freedoms that we enjoy in this country.
Yes.
Use it.
Absolutely.
Please use it.
Yeah.
I know people, these local elections aren't, as sexy as some of the presidential campaigns can be, but again, to me, it's so much more important. These are positions that affect directly our daily lives.
And everybody votes for the president and all that stuff like that. Do they directly impact you in a roundabout way? Yeah. But your local governments, your county commissioners, your sheriff, your local people, that's where you're going to see the biggest change, the biggest difference.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, you look at, school boards setting taxes, the municipal supervisors
it's a
and
direct
councils are setting taxes.
Absolutely.
Yeah. The county commissioners are, those are, again, a direct impact. Obviously we pay a federal income tax as well, but these are things that can really ebb and flow and change and change very quickly. And it especially you look at, I'm about 2 blocks from the city limits, right?
Mm-hmm.
Two blocks north, and I'm in Glade Township.
Yes.
And that's a drastically different tax bracket.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's important for people to understand that those are the kind of things that can really impact, and that's a decision maker for a lot of people.
Absolutely. And there's people like, oh, okay, well, their taxes are here. I'm going to be living in wherever in the county. Some people look at that, but that's why it's very important for a local government. I've always wanted to, I've always voted in the primaries and stuff because I feel it's the most important. Because you're really setting, the local governments and everything. You're setting that bar going into.
Yeah. So, getting back to where I was going with that before we got off on a tangent, which tends to happen.
It sort of happens every once in a while.
But so let's say we get through May 16 and we get through November 7th. I think it's this year, but.
Yes, I believe so.
I think that's. Don't quote me on that.
Don't quote us on that. Yeah.
So we get through November, and the county has decided they want you to be the next sheriff. Yes. When you step into that role and you kind of look around at the Warren County Sheriff's Office right now, what are some things that maybe you see wanting to continue or expand, and maybe what are some things you'd look at maybe changing?
Speaking with a lot of the guys, obviously we work together.
Yeah.
I'm still active law enforcement in Conowingo Township, and working together with the guys. I have the privilege to speaking with most of them, speaking with Sheriff Zabel as well on some of the programs and sort of like the directions and stuff. Whenever I became a candidate for sheriff, one of the things that I was thinking about is expanding the SRO program. And that was something that obviously has impacted my life greatly, and I think it's a fantastic tool for kids and everybody in the community. So I was happy to hear that Brian was already on that bridge. Like he's already like, okay, well, I'm already asking for a third one, which is fantastic. So it was nice to hear that we're kind of on the same page. So, but I do want to look at some different avenues, maybe expanding the dog program. I know Olive is over there, and then Nick will be there as well. I can't stress it enough that dogs are just a fantastic tool for law enforcement, the sheriff's department, and in the public in general. We're not just out, arresting bad guys and all that stuff, which is a rewarding career getting drug dealers off of our streets. But they are also here for community service
Yeah.
and speaking, in the schools and in different Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts events and at the fair and stuff like that. So it is a fantastic program. So there's definitely, I'm hoping that we, can, switch around the budget a little bit and, maybe cut some stuff that we don't really need and expand in some training and different avenues and stuff like that. So training is most of the time the first thing that gets cut.
Yeah.
Unfortunately,
Right. Yeah.
it's like the training budget we're cutting this, we're cutting that.
Mm-hmm.
Whenever we're trying to, because we do sometimes have razor thin margins, in the budget and everything. So whenever it comes down to that kind of stuff, training is usually the first thing that gets cut, unfortunately, and that's a bad thing. It's a bad thing.
Do you think your experience with the dogs has maybe made you a little more cognizant of just how important that continued training is? That maybe and not to say other officers don't have that, but to really see that, oh man, we gotta stay on top of this.
Yeah, and it has. It before, when I was in patrol, it's like, oh, we got to go to training. Oh, we got to go. Now, being an experienced officer, and unfortunately, I'm one of the older officers now in the county. So, but seeing now, training is very important, and especially in a time like this, law enforcement is really constantly under attack. And that's the unfortunate thing, and it's due to sometimes a lack of training. People that are brand new on the job and they don't quite know the job, or you have somebody that just is the lack of training, and especially with mental health, different avenues that we face and obstacles that we face in law enforcement every day can be better handled sometimes with more and extensive training. So.
Well, yeah, and I mean, obviously we're seeing that right now with mental health and the unfortunate incident that happened in New York City on the subway, and that's again, that's understanding, like you said, when somebody's maybe facing a mental health issue versus they're trying to instigate violence or something like that, and as you said, how important can that training be in? Obviously we don't have subways here, and aside from the one that's across the street. But I mean, how valuable can that be, and what difference can that make if you come on a situation where you get a call and say, hey, this person's out here and they're acting really weird, and I think they might be trying to do something.
Yeah. It could be a matter of life and death. I mean, that's how serious this is. And, getting backgrounds on the individuals from family members or neighbors or something like that, in picking up different things and traits that they're doing and recognizing these things could potentially, there's some, forms of autism that people can't be touched and, stuff like that. In getting a better understanding of that kind of stuff, it truly will help, the public to be safe. And obviously we want to treat every individual as safely as possible, as with white gloves as much as we can. But picking up those different aspects and different things that people, are portraying. Is it a guy having a bad day? Because most of the time, whenever law enforcement comes in contact with people, it might be the worst day of their lives. It's an everyday event for us, but it may be the most difficult thing that they've ever had to deal with. And that's truly could be very emotional and stuff. So picking up on these de-escalation techniques and stuff like that, and different trainings I've had, it's very rewarding, and it's paid off a big time, because there has been several incidents that we've dealt with people out in the public that we were able to de-escalate because I recognize different things and different stuff that he was portraying. Like, is this more of a mental health thing other than I'm on drugs kind of a thing? So it definitely helps.
And again, it seems like we keep talking about training, but when you get on those situations, like you said, that's arguably, I would think, if you're interacting with law enforcement in that manner, where somebody's called because something is going on with you, that's probably the worst day of your life. You know, those are not situations that people face every day.
Yes, absolutely.
But you know, with the training and stuff, as an officer, you know, you got to think, okay, this is potentially, you know, a situation that could become, you know, aggressive, or,
Correct.
you know, my life could be in danger,
Yes.
which the body's natural reaction is jack up the adrenaline,
Absolutely.
right? And which can lead to, you know, other things of that instant reaction, you know, the fight or flight response and
Correct.
things like that. But like you're talking about with the training, does it allow you to maybe kind of control that adrenaline rush a little bit better?
Yes, and that comes with experience.
Yeah.
That comes with time as well. You know, back when I was a rookie,
Right, yeah.
you know, my heart's pounding through my chest going to, you know, just little calls, and now we've come to the point that, you know, I know I'm mentally prepared for the potential worst case scenario. So we're thinking about that and working through that as we're going to the call. How can we make this better? How can I de-escalate this? What is going on? What is, you know, the current movement, or where is this individual? You know, how are we going to approach in different safety stuff? Because ultimately, you know, I want to go home at the end of the night, and everybody that works with me, safety is a big thing, but we also want to keep the public safe as well. And
yeah,
the individual.
you want whoever, or individuals or whatever that you're going to meet with, we want them to go home
Correct.
at night too, or
Absolutely,
you know, wherever home may be at that
Yes.
point in time. But yep, lost my seat. This is one of those conversations. I lost train of thought. People are walking in, and but
a lot going on.
Yeah, but you know, again, with that, how beneficial does then that SRO program become? Because you know, those guys are now in with kids. They're around guidance counselors every day, and mental health professionals, and getting that, hey, this is not something where, you know, you need to go restrain a kid.
Correct.
They're having a mental health issue, and here's how it's handled.
In the de-escalation techniques is huge, and that's what, you know, obviously they have specialized training to be an SRO. And the de-escalation techniques that they get taught in dealing with certain mental health and guidance counselors, special needs, those are the things that I'm talking about. They're very valuable, very important, and it can go 0 to 100.
Oh yeah,
you know, especially by just touching somebody and not understanding that mental health. So it is very important for the SROs to, you know, realize where are, you know, these type of people that are that may need help, that are looking for assistance and are working with guidance counselors in different aspects in the school. Like, that's their job. Yeah. And that's why I would like to get one to be personal to that school, because then that way they understand. They know. Kids feel, you know, safe to come up and talk to them, and it's just like, you know, a big brother, sort of like. And that's very important in the school, especially nowadays.
It's significantly easier to build relationships with people when you see them every day, as opposed to maybe once or twice a week. Yeah,
absolutely.
So with that, we're going to take a quick commercial break. If you are watching and maybe have some questions pertinent to Scott or the sheriff's office, go ahead and comment those.
Absolutely.
And if we get a chance, we'll try to answer some of those. But with that, we're going to take a quick break with this word from our sponsors.
You know what would make that better? A cup of white cane coffee.
Wow, that really is great coffee.
White cane coffee, because every cup makes a difference.
It's not just about music lessons. It's about hard work, perseverance, dedication, self-expression, making memories. Let's make memories together.
Welcome back to Coffee and a Conversation, presented by White Cane Coffee. Brian Agber for your Daily Local. Our guest this week, Scott Neiswonger, a candidate for Warren County Sheriff. Don't forget, May 16th. We know that date. We got that one down. May 16th is the primaries. So if you are eligible, go out and vote. Please take advantage of that very important right that we have here. in our great country. And Scott, looking ahead, it's different, right? Because you would potentially be going from Conowongo Township, which is a certain aspect of the county, to Warren County Sheriff, which is the entire county. What kind of differences would you see, do you think, going from, all right, hey, we've got, just this specific area to a countywide position?
I mean, there's huge differences between municipal police officers in the sheriff's department. The sheriff's department is obviously the jurisdiction of Warren County. We have a huge county, and I have found that out more so now running, going all the way from Barnes to Bear Lake.
Yeah,
I mean, we're talking
putting some miles on the
vehicle.
vehicle,
Absolutely. So, but yeah, I mean, the Warren County Sheriff's Department serves Warren County, so it is definitely a different change to just a jurisdiction that we have just in Conowongo Township, and some of the duties and stuff that we do. The Sheriff's Department obviously does a little bit different. They're on the workers of the Common Police Corps, and they're on the civil aspect of everything. And definitely serving warrants is one of their jobs, and obviously civil papers and process and transports and courtroom security and all the kinds of stuff that the Sheriff's Department does. So it's definitely going to be a change for sure. But yeah, it's being a municipal cop, and the good thing about that is we all work together. I will take this incident. There was an incident that we had up in North Warren the other day that we needed more officers. Two of the sheriff's guys came up. A state trooper came up, and we all help one another. We all rely on one another. So that's why we have such a close bond here in Warren County. Is we all work together, and we have to rely on one another. So
and I would think too, things like the Joint Drug Task Force that you mentioned earlier, it's certainly another one of those. Obviously, it's cooperative, and not just within Warren, working with the attorney generals, and things absolutely. Like that too, and it's something else that I got to witness last year. Is when the school district does its annual active shooter training. Last year it was at Youngsville, but I mean, there was obviously Youngsville was there, sheriff's deputies were there, Conowongo Township was. I mean, pretty much everybody, because that's it. Yeah, you were there. But I mean, those are the kind of situations where I think there's still kind of this television belief in law enforcement, right? These guys, this is our jurisdiction, and you're not going to come in here. No. But those kind of things, I think, really demonstrate that when there's a need, especially in a rural area like this, everybody just comes.
Absolutely, together. And being on the drug task force, I've been a drug task force agent since 2009, since its inception. So working with, we wouldn't have a drug task force if we didn't work together. And we work outside with, ATF. We work with Jamestown, New York guys. I mean, there's a multitude of jurisdictions that we go over and work with, because these people, unfortunately, are traveling from out of areas, and they're coming out of Warren too, so we work together with each other, and we rely on that stuff, and that's where whenever I first started off in Conowongo Township, it kind of wasn't like that. A lot of people butted heads, and there was some jurisdictional things and stuff like that, but those times have passed. We'll just say that. So
do you think that's just a general changing in the mentality? And this was something a couple of weeks ago. Stacey Gross was on, and we were talking about doing the Damien Sharp podcast, and how if we had tried to do that, obviously podcasting wasn't a thing, but if we had tried to do that 20 years ago, the response that we would have gotten from local law enforcement would have been vastly different than the response that we got in 2022.
And I guess the podcast era, started out kind of almost as a necessity during COVID, which we all are very familiar with. So, but and I guess it has been the changing of the guards. Even the 17 years I've been a law enforcement officer here in the county, things have changed. The public, everything has changed. So we changed out of necessity.
Yeah.
Because we're always trying to stay one step up ahead of everything and technology and you know, everything that we do, it advances in time. So you've got to continue with that.
Right.
So,
well, yeah, and you know, and I think this is kind of, you know, I'm a borderline true crime junkie. So, but you know, you look at some things. You know, like I was reading a book about the Zodiac killer, right?
okay, yeah,
And you look at how much of their ability to evade capture was based on the fact that, you know, it was crossing jurisdictional lines.
correct.
And now it seems like maybe law enforcement has kind of looked at that and gone, this maybe isn't the best, you know, the territoriality
Correct.
is not maybe
Absolutely.
the best approach.
And whenever I first started, we had the Bucky Phillips
Yes.
manhunt. That was between the state of Pennsylvania.
Right.
It wasn't just, I mean, he was Cotton Warren County, but we're talking the state, federal
Yeah.
agencies. We're talking New York, their
Yeah.
agencies and stuff. So we had to work together. We had to. And I was on the front lines of those things. So,
Yeah.
you know, but we just kind of now got out of that mentality that this is my jurisdiction and
Right.
you know, this is my ball and you can't play with it. We rely on one another too much to do, especially out here in a rural
yeah.
community and
Yeah.
stuff like that. So we don't have that sort of problem. We work, all the chiefs work well with one another now, and all the officers, we're all friends, and you know, we work very well together. So yeah, we have to.
Right. Well, and it's interesting, right? Because, you know, I look around and I go to various events and, you know, and I see you and I see, you know, Charlie Anderson. And,
Yeah.
and it's like, wait, hey, we went to school together. And now, you know what
Yeah.
I mean? But so much of that was, it feels like now we're seeing kind of our generation is taking the reins, and that we were all, you know, friends and work, you know, doing
Yep.
stuff together. And really, I think we're kind of on the cusp of being that first generation where there was more interaction between schools, you know, where like when we first started, if you went to, you know, Youngsville or Sheffield or Eisenhower, that you stayed there.
Yes.
And we were kind of that first generation of, well, no, we're not just going to stay there. We're, you know, we're going to go hang out with people from other areas.
It was very cliquey.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
back, I guess when my parents were in school,
Right.
it was
Yeah.
a little more cliquey, and we
Yeah.
kind of molded to kind of get together and
Right.
and hang out with different people. You know,
Yeah.
guys that went to Eisenhower.
Yeah, right.
It was always, you know, football when we were playing
Right.
football,
Yeah.
and you know, different stuff. So it was all like, oh, you're on the football team,
Yeah.
or you're on the wrestling
Right,
team,
yeah.
you know. So, but we eventually
Yeah.
all hung out together.
But now that we're seeing, you know, kind of, we're, like I said, we're kind of filling into these positions. How much does that, do you think, play into that willingness to now cooperate with each
Yeah,
other?
and you know, being born and raised in Warren County,
Yep.
you know, I had the pleasure, you know, of being a police officer in Colorado Township for 17 years. I have come across victims and unfortunately offenders that I grew up with, and
Yeah.
I know, and their
Right.
families and stuff. We are a very close knit community here, very diverse. There's multiple people that do multiple things, and you know, it's just not a cookie cutter small town. So but yeah, growing up here is definitely helped me on the job. I was able to, you know, de-escalate certain situations
Right,
by
yeah.
knowing
Yeah.
that person,
Yeah.
and stuff, and you know, saved him for maybe potential, you
Right.
know, bad stuff happening. So, you know, it has helped me, you know, growing up here and knowing families and having contacts, and
Yeah.
you know, multiple people, you know, contact me about, you know, hey, so and so's doing this and this, and that's the kind of information. The drug dealers really don't like talking to us. We'll just say that. So, you know,
Oh, come
surprise,
on.
surprise,
Yeah.
you know. So we rely on a lot of times the public, and having a good rapport with everybody in the community has, you know, paid off leaps and bounds. So
You know, and I guess that kind of leads into, you know, you've been 17 years law enforcement in the county. What do you think, right, countywide, is probably the biggest issue that we're facing from a law enforcement perspective?
From a law enforcement, it's always, when it comes down to budgeting, that's a tough one. You know, training, of course,
Yeah.
I harp on training.
Yeah.
And just mental health and dealing with public and their issues that they're having, in not being able to understand that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So it's tough sometimes that we go into a certain situation and we're looking at it from a law enforcement aspect of, we're looking at it differently, and they may see something different. So understanding and trying to kind of mold into and have an open mind and everything, with different situations and different people dealing with different things. So there is a multitude of different things that we are facing every day. Every day I go into work, it's different. It's different. There is not a Monday through Friday, punch the card, and
at
I'm
8 o'clock
this.
I'm doing this.
Correct.
And at 10 I'm doing
Absolutely.
this.
It is. It's very sporadic, and you've got to deal with something as little as a citation for a traffic crash, or different major incidents.
Yeah, or
so
raiding a home with a
Correct.
drug warrant.
Yeah,
or something.
that you didn't know that was coming in.
Yeah.
So it is. So conforming to everything that happens, and being able to roll with the punches, so to say, is a very difficult thing to do sometimes.
And again, being on the drug task force from the beginning, one of the things I hear people say a lot is there's a greater proliferation of drugs in the county now than maybe there was 10 years ago.
Unfortunately,
is that accurate, or is it the potency and style of we've gone from maybe heroin being the leading issue to bath salts to meth to now fentanyl? Is it the quantity, or is it the strength and the addictive quality of the drugs that are coming out?
Well, obviously from whenever I was young in the 80s to now, drugs have done a 180. I mean, it is its potency and different things that have happened. So we're looking at, mom and dad are growing a couple plants in the backyard to now we're getting fentanyl shipped over the border, and it's coming into our area. So it's a very scary thing that these kind of narcotics are out there, and they're very, very dangerous. They're very dangerous to everyone, including law enforcement. So we've seen like the opiate crisis that we were going into 2006, 2009, that switched over to a synthetic narcotic, bath salts. And it was kind of crazy with that for a little while, and then we're now seeing a revert back to methamphetamines and stuff, and then now fentanyl, which is 100 times more potent like that. So and that's another thing that we're evolving to do, because every year it seems like there's something more and more dangerous and everything. So, but you have different chemical compounds that are getting made into these narcotics that are very potent, very strong, and can kill people. And that's why we're seeing the overdose deaths, unfortunately, in Warren County and beyond. So,
and it always struck me as, you would think from a purely business perspective, right? If I'm the head honcho, why would I want something that, potentially one little taste is going to kill people? But it seems like it just keeps progressing to that, where, it's going to take about that much. And
unfortunately, I don't know what that feeling is. I'm very fortunate to that. But so trying to be understanding to that, I'm not 100% sure because I've never been down that road. But they seem to be always chasing that high, chasing that better high and stuff. And the more potent in, oh, well, let's try this, let's try that. And that goes back to education when we are younger in middle school, trying to get the DARE program, fantastic program, and getting the education out there so they're not trying these things. And it may be their first time. And, the potency that's out there, they could overdose. So, which is a very scary thing.
Well, and it's so difficult. And, being a father myself, I understand, that getting kids to understand, like, yes, this absolutely one time could kill you, because, and we've been teenagers, right? And it'll never happen to me. And unfortunately we have seen it happen. And, are there ways maybe that we could modify the DARE program, or, are there certain things that maybe the SROs could do to try to, again, just get that message through that, hey, this is a lot more dangerous than, going over to Jim Bob's trailer and buying a dime bag, right?
And that goes back to our conversation before about getting a rapport with the kids, and getting trust. Trust is probably one of the biggest things, and having the SROs there, getting trust with the kids and trying to, I guess, be a big brother. So, you always looked up to your bigger brother, like, okay, well, this is why he's doing it. That's cool. I want to do that. I want to be just like him and stuff. And that's the big brother. Because a lot of times these children, unfortunately, mom and dad are working full-time jobs, and they don't have that father figure, or they don't have that mother figure that's right there. And that's the gap that I'm talking about, is try to make, kids feel comfortable about speaking to law enforcement and speaking to the SROs, and maybe they'll be able to be more receptive than to listen to that talk. So
that kind of goes in. We did get a question from one of our viewers. Full disclosure, it's my mom. But Debbie asks, do you find the public does not respect law enforcement officers as they did 30 years ago? Might be a little too long for you to stretch it. And why, and what can you do to help, or what can generally law enforcement officers do to help that?
You look at the news media nowadays, and it's there's a lot of hold on just a second. So we'll say the big news media. You see a lot of bad, you see a lot of people in an uproar, but we just don't have that around here. We have a very positive relationship with the news. We have, for the most part, a very positive rapport with the community. So 30 years ago, I don't know what it was like 30 years ago as a law enforcement officer, but I would imagine even in the 17 years of the change that I have seen, there are some lack of respect that goes with everybody. I think in general, there's a lack of respect in the community towards one another, towards a neighbor. So yes, I mean, in education, in working with the community and trying to build those bridges back, because somehow, some way along the last, we'll say 30 years, it's been tarnished a little bit. And it's our responsibility as law enforcement officers to try to get that back. It is our responsibility to reach out and be involved in the community.
It's interesting. It seems like a societal thing, right? And again, our generation was on the cusp of that, right? Like you look at
absolutely.
Rage Against the Machine, I think is a perfect example, right? I won't do what you tell me.
90s hair bands.
And but it seems like, again, societally, we kind of took that to heart. And and have kind of raised our children, and now we're seeing it in Gen Z and older millennials of, there's not just this automatic, oh, you're a boss, or you're a police officer, or you're whatever, and I'm just going to listen to everything that you say and automatically respect you. It's got to be an earned respect.
Correct.
Which in a lot of ways I think is good.
Yes. Absolutely.
because it keeps everybody honest.
Correct. And a First Amendment guy.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
We have the freedom of speech
Yeah.
for a reason. That's how we get things solved.
Mhm.
Independent thinkers
Yes.
that are moving forward with the First Amendment and stuff like that, and getting stuff positive. That's the big thing,
Right.
is
Yeah.
positive.
Yeah.
And having people go forward with that. I mean, obviously, that will help.
Right.
Get your point across and have people having an open mind.
Mhm.
And that's and getting people to conversate back and forth
Right. Yeah.
peacefully
Yes.
together,
Right.
and trying to go for the greater good of the community and get something accomplished.
Yeah. And that kind of leads me into another thing, the greater good for the community. One of the things we talked about the Damien Sharp podcast, one of the things that really came out of that has been a resurgence in Warren County Crime Stoppers.
Yes, absolutely.
And Sheriff Zabel's been very instrumental in making sure that is up and running the way that it should be.
Absolutely.
So again, when you see a program like that, and it's right now being kind of spearheaded by the sheriff's office.
Absolutely.
Is that something that you look at continuing that effort?
Yes, absolutely. Actually, I had the pleasure. We had a Chiefs meeting, and we had a K-9 meeting. I'm the chairman of. So we had a police chief meeting, and I had the opportunity to sit in there. And Crime Stoppers was a conversation that we all want to be on the same page, and we were talking about how we could better improve things and make it more accessible to the community, and really because it's a great program. It's absolutely a great program. So, but trying to bridge a couple of the faults and stuff that could be tweaked around and stuff. And that's where, all the chiefs and especially Sheriff Zabel and stuff that is trying to iron out and trying to make it as smooth as possible.
Right. Yeah.
So,
well, and I think one of the best things that he did was, made sure that with the, repurposing the actual phone line itself.
Yes.
Adding the ability for people to leave messages.
Correct.
So that it's not, you have to hope you call when somebody's able to answer the phone, because it's like you said, there's budget constraints, and we can't have people necessarily just dedicated to sitting by a Crime Stoppers phone.
Correct.
Is somebody going to call today?
And that was one of the conversations that we actually did have, because you're sitting there and we're relying on our PCOs or our 911 centers or the state police that have somebody there manned 24/7. But if there's an incident going on or something major that's going on and that phone rings, unfortunately, it's kind of second priority. Right. And that's where we're trying to get like the messages and the messenger and everything that people can leave, that we can follow up, or the Crime Stoppers can follow up and give us information that we can go on and go forward with that. But it's definitely a great program, and there's definitely some leaps and bounds that have progressed because of this.
And I know people will be happy to hear the steer dump is coming back this year.
Yes.
Tickets are on sale now. I know a lot of people have already gone through their first allocation of tickets. So get it quick, because they're going fast.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's a great thing.
It's very much I think a rural Pennsylvania thing.
Yes, absolutely.
But it is. It's
a hometown thing.
It is. It really is.
It just makes me smile.
And it's funny because, as somebody who's left the county for periods of time and lived other places, in Pittsburgh and Colorado Springs, and and people ask, what do you do there? Pardon my French, I did. Well, we call it BS bingo. Right? Yeah. And what? Yeah. Well, you literally watch a steer go out and take a dump, and it's kind of like your Super Bowl.
Yeah,
If it's your square.
And hit your numbers.
It was fascinating to watch people's reactions when I would tell them exactly what it was, and that we're literally watching a steer take a dump.
Yes, absolutely.
Kind of like
Northwestern Pennsylvania.
But it was funny because where we were in Colorado Springs, we were actually on the outskirts. Schriever. Well, I guess it's the Peterson Schriever Space Force Garrison now.
Okay.
It was Schriever Air Force Base when we were there.
Okay.
But it's about 15 miles outside of the city itself, and when we first moved there, we were living on base. Our house was on the very back end of base housing, and my wife and I used to joke all the time that we could go on our back porch and see Kansas because it's that plateau and it's flat.
Yeah.
But it was a lot of farmland and things out there. So it was interesting that when I would tell that to people from that part of the county, they would be like, "Oh,
that's a great idea.
We should do that."
Yeah.
Right. And then people who live in the city are just like,
"You do what?
You're watching a bull do what?" But no, and those are the kind of things I think that, like you said, this is small town America, and this is one of those things that we can kind of claim as our own.
Yes, absolutely,
and not in a deprecating way, right? Like it's just a thing to do, and but again, it's part of, I think, the benefits of small town living at times.
Absolutely.
And I think, again, the county sheriff concept in a small town is drastically different than, maybe in El Paso County, Colorado, which is a very metropolitan area.
And, it's been a tradition that the sheriff is milking cows at the fair. I can say that there's probably not a lot of sheriffs out there that are doing that.
So you're getting those...
just in case. I'm trying. Yeah, absolutely. Just in case. If I'm lucky enough, we'll try to get it done. I'll do my best.
All right. Well, I think, we're just about an hour into this, and I don't want to take up too much of your time. I know there's lots of events going on that you should probably be campaigning at.
We have beautiful weather this weekend.
And that's finally a nice weekend.
Yeah, I finally don't have to walk around in the rain.
And I know I'll be busy out covering things for Your Daily Local all day. We've got Eisenhower and Youngsville baseball and softball are playing today. We've got our Children's Interactive Festival going on downtown here in about a half an hour. We'll be down there to cover it. So again, obviously stay tuned to yourdailylocal.com all weekend long for all the news you need when you need it. And Scott, thank you so much for taking some time with us today.
Absolutely. And, I appreciate it.
Good luck on May 16th.
Thank you. And I hope to see everybody out the polls.
Yes.
May 16th.
So that will wrap it up this week for Coffee and a Conversation. Join us next week, Saturday morning, 9:30 a.m., live here from the White Cane Coffee Cafe. Our guest next week will be Arthur Stewart, the proud new owner of Cable Hollow Golf Course. Absolutely. And I know he's got some big ideas for some changes up at Cable Hollow, so we'll sit down and talk with Arthur and see what people can expect on the links.
Can't wait for that. Absolutely.
All right. Again, thank you so much, Scott. This is Brian Hagberg for Your Daily Local saying thank you so much for watching. And remember, guys, if you change one life, you change the world. Cheers.
Know what would make that better? Couple White Cane coffee.
Wow, that really is great coffee.
White Cane coffee, because every cup makes a difference.
It's not just about music lessons. It's about hard work, perseverance, dedication, self-expression, making memories. Let's make memories together.